Okay, Chief, go ahead.
Thank you. So I will call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors for West Authority, Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue, and Western Lane Ambulance District. Will you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So make sure you're unmuted. And Holly, can you do roll call, please?
All right, directors for Western Lane Ambulance. Director Murphy.
Here.
Director Russell.
Here.
Director Webb.
Out of this world.
Director Yesney.
Here.
Director Farnsworth.
Here.
For Cecil Valley Fire and Rescue, Director Hickson.
Here.
Director Polisi. Director Spade.
Here.
Director Green.
Here.
Director Burns.
Here.
And then for Western Lane Fire and WLFEA, we have Director Murphy.
Here.
Director Russell. Here. Director Polisi. And Director Spade.
Here.
Go ahead.
Okay, we have quorums for all three districts. Dina, did anybody sign up to speak?
No.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? Hearing none. So is there a request from any director to move an item from our consent agenda to the regular agenda? So hearing none, the consent agenda will consist of the meeting minutes from October 22nd and then staff reports from Fire and EMS Chief, Operations Chief, and the Office Manager. And consent agenda is approved. We can move to the review of monthly financials. Dina, you want to, oh, she's on the phone. So we should be about 33%. We're about a third of the way through.
Bear with me. I just have to send Director Polisi the link to the meeting again.
I can do that if you want to start the financials.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, directors. I've got a few follow-up items from last month's board meeting. Reached out to the auditors as requested, and they provided additional journal entries on the balance sheet for Western Lane Ambulance regarding the pension liability. We also in Western Lane Ambulance have a new report explaining the MasterCard expenses, and the LifeMed analysis report has been corrected. We also, I was also asked to find out for Western Lane Ambulance who the vendor was the last time the levy renewal took place. And the vendor's name was Prospect PDX. They are no longer in business, but the district paid a little over $18,000 for general consulting, media, social media, and flyers, photographer, articles in the paper and so on. Regarding the financials in general, we're 4 months into the fiscal year. So we should be right around 33.4% on expenses. And for SVFR, the SAFER grant, we received a payment for $26,000. And today is actually the last day of the 4-year SAFER grant. On Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority, the MCR program received a payment for $40,000. So almost all of the large invoices are up to date, except for Siuslaw Valley Fire. The Holiday Farm fire is still outstanding. With that, I open it up for questions.
Like Jim Polisi is joining us now. Hey, there he is.
My only comment about the balance sheet entries is I don't believe and don't understand the auditor's deferred outflow of resources. I don't know how you count the lack of a due date for an obligation the district owes as an asset. And Chief and I had this conversation, and I don't have a lot of confidence in our auditor. I thought we got a better product from our past auditor, and I'm not impressed with the work that this one's doing. And I don't think that the deferred outflow of resources line item should be used to obfuscate the liability that the district has to PERS.
Hey, Dina, I have a question if there's no further comment right now. Maybe this is for Matt. On page 42, it looks like our year-to-date overtime is up about $40,000 over last year, or is that budget last year? And I just wondered if that could be addressed as to why we're so high.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We've had one employee out on several extended leave for workman's comp. We had one employee out for a knee replacement, and we've had sick and vacation times. All probably justifies that for the accounted additional overtime.
Okay, so when somebody's out, we just have our regular staff picking up. Is that it? They're
No,
picking up extra
it's
hours.
not
or
just
extra shifts?
it's not just the regular staff. It really depends on what staff goes out. But if we have the 4 minimum according to contract has to be filled. If somebody's already out on vacation, then it requires a mandatory callback for that person to be filled. So when we already have one person out, anything is pretty much obligatory to the contract to be filled by overtime by CBA.
Mm.
We have filled part-time with positions very, very heavily as well. And that's why there's overtime with it, exceeding these like 30,000 versus a 5,000 budgeted. But also when we cut the overtime budget significantly compared to last year as well.
Okay.
Those are the best I got notification about this probably an hour prior to leaving. Those are the best reasonable solutions that I have to the request of the information asked.
Okay.
Dina and Chief, if you have something else that I may have missed, by all means.
I think we've had a little bit higher sick leave use with COVID. We had a couple people out using their government mandated COVID leave, which is fine. That's what it's there for. So, and in those cases where we've had to backfill, it's typically with overtime. But we have been trying to use part-timers and not staffing that fifth position unless we really feel that it's necessary. So I would expect it to be a little bit higher, Rick, and it is this year.
And even the part-timers are getting overtime, am I correct?
Yes.
And they're over 40 hours, that's correct.
Yeah.
Director Burns, did you have a comment?
Yeah, you indicated, Chief, government mandated COVID time off.
Yeah, all employees get 80 hours. All full-time employees get 80 hours of sick leave, extra sick leave for COVID-related absences. So this could be anywhere from if they have to quarantine, if a family member, they have to stay home, take care of a family member, anything that's COVID-related.
It's called the Families First Act.
How's that funded?
We get it.
It's just
out of the CARES Act.
Yeah.
We had to pay for it. Each employer pays for it.
And there's a decrease on the federal income tax.
For the district,
Yes.
we don't pay tax.
Well, for the
Payroll
income,
tax.
the payroll, sorry, not
Payroll
income,
tax.
payroll tax.
So we get stuck with the cost, but we don't have to pay some payroll tax?
But
That
I
is
guess
correct.
if
That is
somebody, first I heard, but if somebody is exposed to COVID-19, that's when they get off, or do they have to, do we know if it's legitimate, not legitimate, or just say, I don't know?
No, this could be anything that's COVID related. This could be they have to stay at home to take care of a child that's home from school, or I mean, it's anything that can be related to COVID.
And they, okay, I just was curious because I haven't heard necessarily, and how do you justify, I mean, how do you legitimize or prove it?
We don't ask for proof. They just tell us, and then Holly tracks that in ADP whether or not it's for COVID. And they have 80 hours they can use.
Okay.
Just a quick question to backtrack on what Larry was talking about or asking about. So we show on the liabilities, we show the net pension liability, then we show a deferred outflow. Maybe this is a question for Rick, but what is the deferred outflow actually representing on that? And is the net pension liability inclusive of the deferred outflow, or is it, I'm trying to figure out if the net term is actually the true obligation, or if exactly what the deferred outflow is supposed to be indicating. Anybody have any ideas?
Are you on page 37, Mike?
36 and 37, right between the two. 37 probably is the page. So I've got 1,022,000 for the deferred outflow. I assume that that's monies that we're showing on the asset side because they're not due yet. But it's money that we're going to have to pay for pension liability. But then it says the net pension liability down further as 2,143,000. So is the 2 million is the true obligation 3 million and change, or is the net pension liability really 2,143,000 at this year's estimation?
No, this would have been the last audit, so that would have been last year's.
Right, but this is
my question is the netting. Is the net pension liability taking into account the 1,022,000 that we have for deferred asset? Is it net of that? Do we add the two together to find out what our true pension liability is?
well, that's the effect on the balance sheet that you're looking at because they've got a credit against a debit. But if I have a loan with Oregon Pacific Bank, you're not going to let me send you a balance sheet that says, well, I don't owe this money until 5 years from now, so therefore it's an asset.
Well, I understand it's an accounting rule, but I'm just trying to figure out though how they're using this particular is our true liability for pension really a 3 million and change if you add the 1,022,000 on top of it.
Well, I think
if it's a deferred outflow.
I think we were at like 2.7 million, and we saw one number that said 2.1 million. We saw another number that said 3.6 million.
Well, the actuarial dropped it down to 2.1 this year. That's where the number comes this year. But that we have no control over that number. We could even drop $2 million to prepaying pension, and it wouldn't affect our ending liability.
That's true. But
so this is one of those impossible liabilities to have on the balance sheet in my mind. It's just that we can't satisfy it, and no matter what we have a liability on it's just weird. It's government accounting, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of the deferred outflow is the true representation of the liability. Really, the 2,143,000 is 1,022,000 actually off of the 2,143,000? Is it?
Well, let me explain what the auditor is. What I think the auditor has done is he has misapplied the GASB rules. the deferred outflow of resources would apply to the pension agency, not to us. I think he's misapplied that number. That number shouldn't be on the balance sheet at all. We should have our 2.1 million PERS liability, and that's offset by our PERS savings account. That's the net liability that we have. It's not the 1 million subtracted from the 2.1 million.
I'd ask, so we don't belabor the point, if Dina could get an explanation of what the net pension liability represents in conjunction with the deferred outflow. And the deferred outflow, why is this showing on the assets? And maybe the auditor, or you can get an explanation for that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Just want to clarify that. I'm on the same page as Larry, but I'm trying to understand it.
I was going to recommend, if there's, particularly in light of Director Farnsworth's comment about being dissatisfied with the presentation, maybe we should be inviting for both districts the auditor to come in and explain the methodology. If we're that not sure as far as how we're accounting for this, then they owe it to us to tell us.
Agreed.
Sure. I agree. I'm just not sure he's up to it.
Well, we have to look at the name on the check that we write every year for an
I
audit.
know, and I think we should change auditors because I don't think he's getting it
That
done.
isn't up for discussion, but I think we hold them to, and maybe they're right, and they owe it to us to explain it.
Right. I think it's fairly confusing to all of us.
That I agree with too, Larry.
Yeah, we'll try and set that up if at least somebody from the auditor's office. I know Kathy, I think there has helped us a lot.
I am grateful that we have saved some money against that liability for the sake of our worker pensions. I think that's a good thing.
So other questions on financials? Okay, we'll go on to new business. First agenda item is creation of a fire marshal position, and recommendation is within WLFEA. So when I first got here, well, years ago, SVFR had a fire marshal position that was filled. That person retired, and then SVFR hired Tony Miller as a fire prevention officer. He had a lot of requirements to work through to become fire marshal, and he's very close to that, and I've supported that 100%. I think we need a fire marshal for our district, and he's working very hard, and he's very close to being designated by the state as a fire marshal. COVID's put a little bit of a pushback on that with him getting the classes he needs, but we see an end very soon. So I decided to bring this up. So right now he is within SVFR. So our proposal would move him into WLFEA as we have moved all other administrative positions. Since it is strictly to the benefit of SVFR, the SVFR district, I would propose that funding comes 100% from SVFR. So there's no net change in fees paid by either district for this position. It does take Tony out of the bargaining unit for SVFR. He would be overtime exempt. He'd be executive position. So that's why the proposed salary range is a little bit higher than what he is making as a captain. And that would offset his the overtime that he wouldn't be getting. I know there's been some question, why don't we just leave him in SVFR? We certainly could do that and still have the fire marshal. When we started WLFEA, we moved all administrative positions to WLFEA, and I think this would just follow on with that. There'd be no cost to Western Lane Ambulance District. This would be borne by SVFR. We'd have to figure out how we do the accounting for that, but I don't see that as an issue. But definitely is a step that we need to take. Where we put Tony, I think it should be in WLFEA, but I'm willing to answer any questions or have further discussion on that. I know Jim Polisi has been very involved and helped us with this. So Jim, anything you want to say as well?
Yeah, Chief, and good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I kept getting dropped every time I tried to log in. Chief, no, I do agree with you. I think the fire marshal should be in the command staff portion of the organization and under WLFEA. Fire marshals are really a unique position within the public safety. Not only do they have to meet the standards of NFPA 1037, but they also have to meet 1033 for an investigator. So it's really two jobs, actually three. They're part of a building official as well. So they all come in under one. And looking at the agency and the complexity of what Tony has to do, he really needs to be under command staff. I mean, he is your right-hand person when it comes down to pre-fire planning and public safety in the forefront. So moving him into WLFEA is the right move, in my opinion.
I have to say, I agree with Jim on most of that. You know, Tony has done a great job, and having someone in that position who is at the front and the back end of fire situations in terms of working with builders to make sure the places are fire safe, but then also being there in the event of a fire to figure out what happened is a really great asset for us. I agree with the chief that I think it should be fully funded through the fire department. I don't think Western Lane should have to foot any of that. My only question is, and this is just so I understand it, but as far as the salary, how did we come about what that is going to be?
Well, I've been looking very closely at salaries, and that'll be a future discussion. Salaries at all levels, but that's entry level, chief level salary range, which is typically what your fire marshal will be at a battalion chief level, which is entry level chief officer position. So that's a range there. So that would be based on someone with 15 years experience. I would expect to come in at the high end. Somebody that, even though Tony's got several years of experience, this would be his first as a designated fire marshal. So he'd be coming in at the beginning range. But this is based on looking at every single salary level in our organization and where he would fit in, where our current, where we would project people should be. And again, that'll have to be decided by the boards. But this is the first time we've brought a proposed salary range to the board. So absolutely, I think we should look closely at that. But I think for this position, I think it fits right in with the industry standard, at least in the state of Oregon and agencies for our size.
Now, I'm assuming that a lot of the classes that Tony had to take, Tony's done a great job. Tony's the full package. He works well with people. He communicates well. I mean, he's got all the skills that are necessary. I'm assuming that the classes that he took and the certifications that he achieved were paid for, at least in part, by the fire department.
That is correct.
Okay. I mean, so I think that should be part of the consideration. I'm not trying to bring Tony in under what he should be paid. I just want to make sure that we're careful and we don't set ourselves in a position where we're not, we're maxing out too soon, and make sure that's something that we can handle. And the other part of it is Tony going to be, I know when Sean was the fire marshal, he was also duty chief. He was part of that rotation. Is that the plan for Tony as well?
Absolutely, that would allow us to do that without having to pay him overtime to do it. So it's something that would absolutely benefit us. And he'd still be a responder. He could respond during the day just as Chief House and I do, and we'd expect him to do that. But he would be exempt from overtime.
Yeah.
Well, I have no problem with the proposal, but I don't want it to be part of WLFEA. Chief, you stated that we move the management and administrative staff into WLFEA. That was administrative and management staff that served both agencies.
Well,
fire
actually,
marshal, it has nothing to do with the ambulance district.
If you look at when we first started it, Matt was from the ambulance district and Jim Dickerson was from the fire. It's only once Jim left and then we had a Matt shared. And I think this is the direction we're wanting to go. I think that's the direction we want to go, is that.
It's not the direction I want to go.
Okay, but I think it's the direction of the majority of the directors that.
I just have a different question as a taxpayer, not as a board member, but as a taxpayer. How much did we pay Sean Barrett to be fire marshal?
Larry, you can't compare them. The job functions truly belong in command staff. They do not belong separate, Larry.
Okay.
You can't separate them out.
I thought Sean was a fire marshal.
Maybe by title.
Okay.
Whoa.
It's a fair question.
No, I know that. Maybe by title, but you can't compare the two.
Director Burns.
Why can't we compare the two? Is the job different now than it was then?
Yeah. The standards are different. If you look at what he has to go through now to be an accredited fire marshal under the NFPA standards of 1037 and 1033, it would be the same for me if I was to go back. I would not be equal to what it is today. So the education requirements are accelerating faster than we can put the people in there. So if someone came to me to say today and said, hey, Jim, 5 years ago, you were a fire marshal. Yeah, well, not today. I can't compete with that. You have to have continuing education. And I'm not taking anything away from Sean. He did a great job. But if you look at what Tony has to do today and the requirements that are being placed upon a fire marshal, they're being asked to do more with less. You can't do that. And you're gonna burn somebody out. If you look at the requirements of fire marshals from San Diego all the way up to Vancouver, Washington, they have to still meet these same requirements of 1037 and 921. And it's going to get even more for them. And I look at just what a deputy fire marshal makes for the state of Oregon. Tony wouldn't even be close to that salary range. So, you know, you're looking at such a technical position that's being placed into a level that is truly a command position. And, you know, I mean, I could sit here all day and it would take me probably a week to try to educate my fellow board members on what a fire marshal does. And it's not an easy task. And believe it or not, Tony's going to have to really jump through some hoops to keep that continuing education up. And we need to be able to support that, because if not, we're going to lose a talented person.
And I think if you look at the salary range, it's right. I mean, he's a captain now, but that doesn't show the overtime he gets. And he's required a lot of overtime, fire investigations after hours, fire prevention after hours. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this. I think it will save us money in the long run.
It will.
Much overtime, but it's still compensating him fairly. So I think that coming in at that, starting him at that range, I think is the right thing to do.
It seems to me that the salary should be determined by the fire board, not Western Lane. No matter where he goes, you guys are paying for him, whether he's with you or with WLFEA. So it seems like the discussion of his salary should just be with the board for a fire district.
Yeah, this is the discussion for WLFEA and SVFR, although Western Lane ambulance district directors are allowed to comment. Director Burns, you've been trying to get in.
Yeah, biggest question is right now and between now and January 1, will Mr. Miller be a fire marshal? You said he's not.
I don't believe he won't be designated by the state as a fire marshal.
Until next year, sometime.
Soon, within, yeah, they were supposed to revamp a couple of classes in November. So we're trying to get him signed up for those classes, easy classes, just basic classes.
Then this discussion as a fire marshal is moot until he has his certification.
But it's difficult to get to those certs given the current situation. Classes are being canceled left and right.
But that's not anybody's fault, sir.
No, I totally understand that, but I don't think we should penalize the person trying to achieve that position.
I totally agree. The board should be paying for everybody's higher education, but you can't give somebody a title until they serve that and the pay that goes with that.
Well, and that's why we put this down as January 1. We assume that the state will have the classes available.
But not until he passes those classes or gets that certification. Until then, he's not a fire marshal.
He's not designated by the state as a fire marshal. We could call him a fire marshal.
We can call him whatever we want.
You can call him the mayor of Florence if you want to.
Yeah.
Right.
It's my feeling that we want that state designation. I agree.
Until then, it's a dead subject.
Well,
I disagree. It's not a dead subject. You need to be moving forward on a provision of moving the agency forward. Okay, because technically, if you really want to know the truth,
have you been lying to us?
No, not at all. The fire chief, by law, is designated as the fire protection specialist. He or she can designate who they want to be, quote, the fire marshal. Now, if you want to do that, then the fire chief needs to go through about 27 different courses to achieve those certifications.
Well, that's
great, why
then.
the law, well, no, that's why the law gives the fire chief the authority to designate an individual to be the fire marshal.
Director Green.
Is he allowed to serve in the capacity to do the job without the state certification?
Yes, he is. He is doing the job.
Then we should pay him. And
Definitely.
We should hold you accountable to ensure he gets certified. But to squabble over a few $1,000s for a few months is really, in my opinion, irrelevant. So if he's doing the job, pay him, and the chief will ensure he gets certified.
Yep.
So when are we looking to make that official?
January 1.
Okay, so I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to wait until January to start talking about what we should do. I think right now is the time to have this conversation so that when January 1 rolls around, and assuming and hoping that he gets the classes he needs, we can move forward with that position and the official title. And if it is postponed by a month because COVID and they've canceled classes, so what?
Yeah.
My point exactly. If he's doing the work, but if he's not it, then we shouldn't be having this conversation. If Chief Schick, you indicated that he is doing the work, he is classified as the fire marshal. As far as I'm concerned, he's the fire marshal. He still needs to do the education next year, the year after that, whatever it takes to do continuing ed. No issues.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And he has to maintain those credentials. You just don't get them and go away.
That's what's called continuing ed.
That's right.
Okay. So I think SVFR has agreed that we make him the fire marshal at this salary range, unless somebody objects. But the other question is, should he be in WLFEA? Should he be moved to the administrative branch?
Well, I have a comment on that. I think since the formation of this third entity, there's been the discussion of evaluating the methodology of how much each district pays. And it's kind of been this magic line that we've drawn. And I think this kind of creates the opportunity to formalize that a little more through a formal cost accounting budget process. He is an administrative employee. He may not serve the ambulance district, and they shouldn't pay for that. But I support him being in WLFEA, but it's going to require that board and the two districts, but to do a budget that says we pay this year 39% because of this cost, or next year it's 35.2% or whatever it is. I think he should be an admin employee.
Agreed.
And that is a requirement each year is to adjust that number, however the boards feel fit.
But it should be based on an actual budget, based on the allocation of who's using what.
Yes.
Not just so.
Yeah, I agree. So I would like a motion from SVFR to create this position of fire marshal.
I make a motion.
Actually, it would be WLFEA. You can still make a motion, but it'd be WLFEA to create fire marshal and then to move Tony into that position.
This is Police. I make the motion.
I'll
So
second.
Jim, okay, it's been moved and seconded. So this is just for WLFEA board members. Holly, can you do a roll count vote?
Question.
Yeah, we have discussion. Yeah, Director Burns.
Yeah. Now, WLFEA is going to make a motion to give Mr. Miller the raise?
WLFEA is making the motion to create the position. No, SVFR would be the ones that have to approve the salary range.
Correct.
Yes. It's just to create the position.
All WLFEA's motion was to create the position and to hire Tony Miller.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, John.
It's been moved and seconded. So Holly, if you could do a roll call count or vote. For WLFEA members only, you're on mute.
Thank you. All right, Director Murphy,
Yes.
Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Polisi,
Yes.
Director Spade,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now it would be a motion from SCFR directors to adopt that proposed fire marshal salary range.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Burns, seconded, was that by Ned Hickson? Holly, can you do a roll call vote of SCFR?
Director Hickson,
Yes.
Director Polisi,
Yes.
Director Spade,
Yes.
Director Green,
Yes.
and Director Burns.
Yep.
Thank you, fellow directors. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
So next
Congratulations, Tony.
action item is for SCFR directors. So a couple months ago, directors approved a wide range of surplus vehicles to be surplus, and we're in that process. And when we do surplus a vehicle, we set a value that we want for that vehicle. We offer it internally. If there's no internal people willing to meet our minimum bid, then it goes to public surplus, which is a website where outsiders can bid on it. But we sent out an announcement that we had the Dodge Durango available, and Jim Yao, who's the chief at Swiss Home Deadwood, asked if the directors might consider donating it to Swiss Home Deadwood Fire District. It would be a step up. Unfortunately, it would be a step up in what they have now. I would, of course, it would be as is. The radios have been taken out of the vehicle. In fact, that's what I used in my new vehicle. We took the radios out, so it still has lights and sirens, but really that's the only thing of value there. I did discuss this with Jim. I said there's no promises that this will continue running. You know, once you drive it off the parking lot, it's their responsibility. But like I said, it would be an upgrade. And I said I would bring it to the board for discussion, and if they would like to do that. We have donated vehicles in the past. We've donated tenders to Mapleton and Swiss Home. But recently, board of directors, they wanted to maximize the return for vehicles we've surplused. So I just wanted to keep that in mind as well. So questions, discussion from SCFR directors?
Does it still have the 8-track player in it?
The radio does not work, the AM/FM radio, so that would be their problem.
You sound like a used car salesman.
Well, my feeling on it is I think it's, donating it to them is a good move because we're trying to build this relationship with our other local.
And I second it, Ned. Let's move on.
Okay, there was, Ned, was that a motion?
Yeah, sure.
And Sam, that was a second? Okay,
Yes.
all in favor, just say aye.
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 Okay, that passes. Thank you. So old business. This is really an update on the strategic plan process. We are still thinking about it. I know it's something we really want to do. We had that presentation from ESCI. We have a presentation from LCOG at the December meeting. They couldn't make tonight. I was hoping they could make tonight. but we will have a representative from LCOG that also does strategic planning for agencies in Lane County. It's a little bit cheaper than ESCI, but I wanted us to get just have some discussion with their representative. I really wanted us to have contracts done for both districts before we got deeply into strategic planning. I don't know if that's going to happen, so let's go ahead and do the strategic planning process, at least get that going. So that's really just to let you know that we will be doing that at the December board meeting. And the next agenda item is for Western Lane Ambulance District Directors. We had Liz Loomis from Liz Loomis Communications, or Liz Loomis Public Affairs. She talked to us last time. She would help us with the levy renewal process. She does public, she helps set up a communication process for that. She is quite expensive. We know that. That's her standard fee. In the past, we had PDX, Prospect PDX, was that it? Yeah, I think that was that. They are no longer in business, but they were quite cheap. So Liz came in at $60,000. So I just opened that up to the directors. I mean, the options are that we hire her. Second would be that we just do it internally. Go ahead, Director Murphy.
I'd like us to consider postponing this until we get our negotiations all wrapped up. And also, before we make this decision, I would like to see some projections of what our levy is going to look like, where our lines are going to cross in what year, and see some recommendations of what we have to do, if raise the levy or leave it the same, before we do make this decision.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
I think that's a good point to delay it, because, you know, she's looking at 3 times the amount of money in the last 5 years for what she got 5 years ago. And I think, are there other agencies out there that can compete with that?
Not that we know of. And Director Spade, this would just be for Western Lane Ambulance District. It wouldn't impact SVFR, but you're welcome to comment.
Well, WLFEA, though, it impacts that, right? So I get it right.
No, just Western Lane Ambulance District.
Okay.
She is offering a different product than what we had at Prospect PDX. She's a lot more into the publications, the back and forth on social media and the like. It was worth every penny to have Prospect PDX jump in on this. And to be honest with you, time is of the essence. If we want to get this levy done, we need to get our butts in gear and get it going, or we're going to find ourselves without a levy and scrambling for renewal. So
I think this is outrageously overpriced. I think that we're going to.
I had the floor, Larry. I think we need to finish this up. I honestly think I would support this. So now.
Well, I think it's outrageously overpriced. $60,000 doesn't include any print, mailing, radio spots. Last time we had a levy renewal, Brian Burright pretty much ran the program. I think a hard sell to spend $100,000 using taxpayer money to convince them to give us more money. So I think it would be a good idea. I follow John's lead to let's defer this, get a better handle on what we're actually trying to do, and go from there.
Well, I honestly think it's a mistake for the district, for the future of the district and the district funding, to allow ourselves to abandon the opportunity to get a levy next May. If we don't get our butts in gear, we're not going to be in position to get it done in May. We're already about 3 months behind. We don't have a lot of time for choices, and I would advocate for doing this.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can make the May timeframe.
I thought she recommended November.
She is, just because we're so late in the process.
Right.
So Chief, remind us, when does the levy take effect again, and what's the downside of waiting to November, or is there any issue there?
So yeah, so we are going a year. So you have to have your levy in by your levy request in of June of whatever year it is. So if we go in November of 21, then that would be, then the levy starts over. That would be for 2022. And I know I'm probably not explaining this correctly, but last time we went out was November of 2016. And that's the current levy we have right now. So it's a 5-year levy, so it would be November of 2021 is when we have to go out. And then it would be for submission for the next year of the levy.
If we don't pass the levy in November for some reason, could we go out in May of the following year?
Yeah.
And still, so we would have 2 shots at it, even if we deferred till November.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess I'm okay with waiting and having a discussion. If we recognize we can't meet May and there's not a detriment to waiting till November and we still have a shot the following May. My thought is, but we better narrow it down and see if somebody can help us. I think we do need help on this. I would spend $60,000 for a 97% likelihood that we would pass a levy that would bring us $5 million. We can't afford not to get this levy in place. So I think it's a good investment myself, but if we have 2 more shots at it after November of 2021 and the following May, I would be okay with deferring and having the discussion on the union negotiations.
And I'm not saying we have to wait a long time. I mean, the chief or could be putting us together something, what the projections are if our levy is the same.
I would suspect he already has that in place, and if we read through the agenda, we may be to the question answered by the time we're done with the executive session. So we might be ready in this meeting.
I haven't seen anything yet.
So I'm sorry. So John, the operating levy brings in really close to $1 million a year.
I understand that, but we have seen no financial projections out a couple years what our costs are going to be, our employee costs. We're just kind of shooting in the dark if we pick a number today.
Well, yeah, this would just, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And yeah, we've been looking at those graphs at the negotiating side, but yeah, and you have seen it in the past, but yeah, it's been a while. But this would just be, we're just talking about a renewal. There has been some discussion, do we need to raise that levy? And that's certainly a discussion the directors have to have. Then I think it's actually even more imperative that you have professional help if you're going to raise the levy.
That's correct.
So what is the desire of the directors?
You know, Chief, I kind of heard that she had looked at us as well as us looking at her, and she would, if we were going to renew the levy as is, she was definitely on board. I kind of heard some hesitation for her, some thoughts that she might have to think about it if we decide to raise the levy. So, I mean, it's important that we have that discussion. We haven't had that yet. Is the levy adequate for our financial situation?
And she was worried about community atmosphere after our union negotiations, and if our 2 directors were going to run or get or not. She still had some hesitation in her presentation.
I've got a long history with Liz, and I think that's why she's willing to look at us to do this, even if it is a little bit iffy. She's very protective of her success rate. So I think the fact that she is willing to work with us is a good sign. But yeah, those are great questions. I think employees know very well that not having this operating levy would be extremely detrimental to the district. That's about a third, about 30% of our budget. So it's something that we have to have. The question is, do we increase it?
Well, I'd like to put it on the agenda for next month and make our final decision then.
Okay.
And if we have to have a special Zoom meeting, a levy workshop or something, let's plan it between now and then.
I'd like to hear a presentation from another group also.
We've been reaching out. LCOG doesn't do that. They were going to try and see if they know any lobbyists that may know somebody, but absolutely, we've been looking.
What did SBAO say?
Yeah, we've reached out to them, or Dina reached out to them, so we're just waiting to hear back if they have somebody that does this. LCOG will help us with the form submission, but that's about it. I'm sure there's probably people out there that I haven't heard of, but yeah, we're just having trouble. I know you haven't heard from SDAO, have you, Dina?
Actually, Chief, it was the other way around. The gentleman we spoke to, David Ulrich, is the financial director for SDAO.
Oh, he was SDAO? I
Yeah.
thought it was Elko.
So SDAO can help us with the forms, and he may know of some lobbyists that can help us with some assistance with the media part, and he's going to get back to us. I did reach out to LCOG, and they do have a financial person who was supposed to get back in touch with me. I just haven't heard from him yet.
So Director Russell, we are trying to see if there's,
Because I was not impressed with her.
yeah, okay. So
Nor her price tag.
So I think it's the consensus that we move this discussion to December. We can try and come up with some estimates, cost estimates. Hopefully we'll have a contract that will give us a little bit better idea where we're going over the next few years, and we'll discuss that tonight, but that's fine. Yeah, we can put up some projections.
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay, so that's the end of old business. Director comments.
And Chief, I'd like to remind all of the directors that you guys can also not only make comments about your board, but you can make comments to the WLFEA board about things you'd like to see or information you need.
That is correct. So are there any directors that would like to make comments?
Yes.
Director Polisi.
I would like both boards to prepare a proclamation for Pete Warren for his outstanding duties as a retention and recruitment coordinator. Not an easy job, especially in the past year. He had to, oh, there you go. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that. But I would really like to see us provide him with a plaque of appreciation. You know.
Yeah, I was hoping he was going to be able to sign in tonight. He had a conflict, so unfortunately,
okay.
we did present him with this. This is actually a card that we all signed here, and we had cake.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Cake somewhere.
Well, I know that, well, we talked about wanting to give him something that was, you know, tangible that he could hang on his wall.
Right.
Out of appreciation. I mean, you know, when I first started, Pete was my first captain, and he just does an amazing job, and he's so great with different kinds of people, and I really appreciate the work that he's put in over the last 4 years. He was, you know, hunting through the gym, and no one was safe from Pete approaching them to get onto the fire department.
That's pretty good. Nobody was safe. He was hunting them down.
I sure appreciate all of his efforts, as well as, you know, his commitment as a firefighter. And I'm hoping that he continues on as a volunteer.
Absolutely.
I believe he has applied for lieutenant, and he'll probably apply for a firefighter position or career firefighter position. So
good.
But at worst case scenario, I hope he does continue as a volunteer. Thank you, Director Polisi. Yeah, we'll work on that.
I appreciate that. And if you need any financial contribution, please let me know.
We have a budgeted amount for that.
Okay.
With COVID, we can't do our banquet or anything like that. So
no, I get it.
In that, yeah. Thank you,
I
though.
get it.
Other director comments?
Could we get a COVID update from Matt as to how our staff is doing and what kind of exposures and PPE we have, how we're doing in that regard?
Sure.
To the 97439 zip code, we currently have 39 cases to the zip code. What does that mean? That they're not active cases. It also goes from the existence of this from March 19th. So of those cases, probably 4 or 5 of them are active cases. Last night was the first time that we actually responded to a known positive COVID case. Crews did a phenomenal job protecting themselves, on both sides of the fence. Fire and EMS both responded. Both of them, after interviewing and talking with them, all took the appropriate steps to protecting themselves, deconning and appropriately throwing away what was used. We do have one staff currently right now that is out because of precautions with his family being ill. We have waiting a test for what's COVID positive or negative, which helps us determine whether they can come back to work. Is it difficult to manage? Yes. Every day is a new day when we go to work. Staffs, both sides of the fence, all of them are being very resilient. The message now is not be COVID complacent, go the other direction, be diligent, be prepared, protect our house. All of them have embraced that and are doing a really good job. The union has been very helpful with guidance on their side too with 851. I think overall, with how we're managing this, I'm very proud of our organizations, and I'm very proud of our employees, making sure that they keep themselves safe and keeping our community safe at the same time. For PPE, we are running into some problems getting what is now gloves and some N95 masks, but we also do have the ability to pull from Lane County as long as they keep their EOC open. At this time, I don't have an order into them, but I'm constantly evaluating our part and talking with both agencies and where we're at with our PPE. We're good. We're managing it. One of the best moves we did was actually from B shift that's currently on duty today. When this all started, they all went out and bought N95 industrial respirators, and we made that a kind of a policy throughout both districts. So all of them have the N95s. We actually did N95 testing as well that we caught up. I think 95% of our staff have done the N95 fit tests. So we're making sure that the proper fit is there as well. We're doing good. Is it a struggle? Is it a challenge? Absolutely. As people stepping up, very proud of the district and everybody involved. And so far, we have not had a positive case within our district, the personnel, and even in the workforce. And hopefully that's going to change. It's just a matter of time as things circle down the drain, unfortunately. But so far, we're doing a really good job protecting our house.
Great. Is that the same on the firehouse side?
Yeah. I tried to articulate both sides.
Okay. Yep. And in terms of the staff that were in a classroom situation, did everybody test okay in that regard, or?
Yeah, all the testing came back negative that were exposed in a best case scenario. That was the environment you would hope to get exposed to, because they were all wearing PPE in that classroom setting while they're doing IV therapy labs. So, I mean, again, I would rather have been exposed in myself, because I've been wearing everything that I had to have been doing by doing the IV therapy lab. And the interactions with the instructor was very limited. Yeah, cumulative, it could have been 15 minutes, but the instructor would come over the head, watch the IV stick, good, and then they would move on. So it really was not a lot of face-to-face contact, but everybody had facial coverings. LCC did a great job making sure that it was set up, and they've handled it appropriately as well.
Okay, so with the 38 cases we've had since March, do you get an accurate count of the active cases in town in the zip code?
I would like to say that we're getting good feedback from Lane County Public Health, but we're not. And this has been a struggle that Chief and I do work with Eugene Springfield. Chief Campy is supposed to be the designee to give us the information so we can put it into our 911 center. But we've learned there's about a week lag time, almost 10 days before the numbers are published. So we're running into this lag time of we don't know actually who is positive, who is not positive. So the moral of the story is everybody doing what we do anyways for any call is making sure you're wearing the proper PPE to protecting yourselves.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do meet with the Lane County EOC every week. Last Tuesday, they reported a little over 300 positives in Lane County. 14 were in the hospital and 4 were in ICU. I think that's probably increased the last couple of days, but that's the latest information. and no breakdown in the Florence area, unfortunately.
And I get daily updates from Lane County about what the cases are and what they're doing. And I've just pretty much kept that information to me because really broadcasting it out does no good other than increase maybe paranoia. We're doing the steps that we need to be doing, protecting the house and our people. So,
well, I heard yesterday that Bay Hospital in North Bend has been unable to transfer patients to Portland. And now they're looking for new places they can place people.
and it'll be good luck because all the hospitals throughout the Willamette Valley are completely full. We're running into the same problem here. Yesterday, 2 transfers were sent to one Bay Area hospital, one to Good Sam, because there was only 4 beds available between both hospitals, and that was it in the state of Oregon. I got a text message yesterday from Sacred Heart Riverbend stating that they are swamped with COVID patients, so to expect longer than normal wall times meaning that we're sitting waiting for a bed. It doesn't usually affect us because we're doing interfacility transfers. However, it would affect us if we came with a scene call to Riverbend, which was that case last night. We bypassed Peace Harbor, does not accept these patients. Our staff had a conversation with the ER physician. We bypassed Peace Harbor and went directly to Riverbend with that patient that was known to be positive.
Goodness.
Yeah, we've kind of been.
Chief House?
Yes.
Chief, has there been any movement from the United States military as far as moving the Mercy ships up to help with this?
Not that I've heard in recent, and when we're looking at the recent numbers and why we've went the direction, the governors have went the direction they have is because of all the increase. This actually started in Idaho. If you looked at the numbers, Idaho got inundated first. They dumped their patients they handled the patients the best they could, and they started outsourcing to Oregon. And then we had a lot of the patients in the valley actually from Idaho and up to Seattle. And now we're getting this, backlog, not just with COVID patients, but with normal flu patients as well. This is the time of the year where our flus start to increase.
We don't need flu patients. It's all COVID.
Yeah, right.
So are they looking at mobile setup facilities, or are they? I mean,
Riverbend, I can speak to Lane County. I don't know about some of the other areas because if I go too big, I lose my span of control.
Right.
Sacred Heart Riverbend and McKenzie Willamette, yes, they are going back to looking to set up their mass casualty tents. Peace Harbor advised me yesterday that they're going to be probably setting up as well. The problem that we're running into locally, which I did not know until a couple of days ago, is that Peace Harbor Hospital is in the middle of their seismic upgrade, which decreased their bed capacity by half the wing, which I believe is 6 on that side. So now we are missing 6 beds into this hospital where we can admit, thus increases transfers, thus increases overtime, backfill, everything kind of goes down. We had 4 of the, 2 days ago, we had 4 non-emergency transports that were directly related to the hospital unable to house them. These 4 patients could have been admitted, however, that because of the seismic upgrade and everything already being full, that they were trying to get them out.
Hey, Matt, I was going to mention too, remember when we had H1N1, we've kind of been here before, and the peak of the flu season was in January. So what's really concerning is I think we'll peak out in another month or 2. I mean, it's really possible we're just at the front end of this thing.
Well, there's 2 thoughts. Yes, that's one of them. The other one is that everybody's being more diligent about personal hygiene and facial coverings, that could bring down the numbers of the flu. Some people still is like, it's my right. I'm not going to wear a mask and go their own directions. And the people that don't wash their hands after the bathroom, we should have conversations off to the side with them about personal hygiene. But the reality of it is we're in this fight. I mean, it's not going away. Yeah, we have really good news of a vaccine coming down the lines with 2 different large pharmaceutical companies with roughly 95% efficacy to the vaccine to the virus. However, it takes a long time to actually make sure that that's vetted and appropriately and Chief Schick can definitely speak to that because that's his background. But even if we can turn this around and mass distribute it, you're looking until March and April. We're going to be well past our flu season. So we're in this well until 2022.
Matt, thanks for the great update. Chief, I'd like to move forward to our executive session.
Any other director comments?
I just have one very quick one. Everybody have a happy and safe Thanksgiving to the board and the
Yes.
staff and everybody on the call. So
Thank you.
be well.
All
and
of you.
We'll get together again in December.
Okay, I need to read this and then we'll adjourn. Following adjournment, the Western Lane Ambulance District Board of Directors will meet in executive session for ORS 192.660, paragraph 2, subparagraph D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media and audience members are asked to leave the session. No final decisions will be made during the executive session. The board does not plan to return to open session tonight. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Hold it, Chief.
Yep.
I'd like to ask if we could invite the SVFR directors to attend our executive session. There will be information that's important for their digestion. So we'd like to invite them to join with us. We understand the deliberations are not theirs, but should this district decide to merge at some point in the future, they will have the burden of this collective bargaining agreement to carry. So since we started out as a board of 10 members in our negotiating protocol and executive session, I think it's appropriate if any SVFR director would like to attend, that they be allowed to do so.
Thank you, Director Farnsworth. I would like to attend.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, so all directors that would like to participate in the executive session, stay on. The rest, again, have a happy Thanksgiving and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.